What's going on today, guys? MMA Messiah here today. Be sure to like and subscribe, guys. I've been posting a lot on shorts. Be sure to check those out. But today we're going to be talking about an interesting topic here. And yeah, just don't forget to like and subscribe. We're going to be talking about how Jake Paul and Netflix can contest with Dana White in the UFC. So, in business, from a business major and in business perspective, the UFC has a monopoly on MMA as an industry in a whole, and it's hurting the sport of MMA, and it's also hurting the UFC inadvertently because they're having these fight nights and everything like that every week. They're falling off in quality. The hype's not the same. The fights aren't delivering. And the UFC as a product is just declining in quality overall, especially in the past 5 or 6 years. That could be due to McGregor leaving the sport and things and such as that. However, the UFC doesn't pay their fighters enough, and we're going to be getting into that today. This is how I believe the UFC needs a contender in Netflix, and how I believe that Netflix can be that a contender. But we're going to get into it today. Okay. Why is having competition a good thing, as I was just saying? The UFC has been decaying, just as I just touched on. Dana doesn't care anymore. Dana White does not give a fuck about the sport anymore. He's abandoning the sport. He would prefer to go promote boxing, and not sit in on UFC fight night events, not sit in on several different types of cards. And he promotes the fights like shit. I mean, think about it. Like I said, he's got the fucking dad chin up there. He's got the fucking dad chin. He's got the freshly chrome shiny head. He looks like fucking Neptune off SpongeBob, but he just promotes the fights with the smallest amount of hype whatsoever. What's up today, guys? All right, you little fuckers. I got somewhere to be. We got Holloway versus who the fuck's this guy? McGregor 2. And then he just goes on and announces the whole card on as Ngannou's walking out. That was kind of a savage move. But he's just a fucking idiot, dude. He doesn't give a fuck about the sport. He in the last press conference he goes, well, my therapist says I'm a sociopath, so why wouldn't I want that fight? Or some shit like that. So his therapist, that he wasn't joking about that. His therapist legit thinks he's a sociopath, which I can understand why. With the way he does his fucking fighters. And he doesn't even really have control anymore. He's just a face of the business. That's why he's doing boxing. Because I think he's in some Zuffa boxing contract where he basically he's the face of the company, but he doesn't do any of the actual nitty gritty work. Some fucking Zuffa team does, or UFC, or Hunter Campbell, or whatever the fuck makes the matchmakers, and the matchmakers make fights. But he doesn't have any say. He has say, but he doesn't have any control of what actually goes on in the UFC. He's just a face who answers questions. He's just a glorified CEO, essentially. And Paramount doesn't give a fuck. And he needs to get, if honestly, Netflix needs to, not Netflix, Paramount needs to make sure Dana White fucking retires as soon as possible. He's terrible for the fucking sport. And he's bringing the sport down as a whole. I know a lot of different people think this is not like a hot take. But, dude, Dana is bad for the sport at this point, and he's not doing us any good. I'd prefer if Hunter Campbell was a CEO or someone who actually gave a fuck. Goddamn, dude. MMA guru for fucking president, dude. If Netflix is a serious threat to the UFC, the MMA and UFC will both evolve. Or die in the process, depending on how well they handle it. The point being is if you pay fighters more than the UFC, if Netflix pays the fighters more than the UFC, which I don't know if you guys saw the actual payouts and everything like that, but I got them pulled up right here. This is how much everyone made. I fact checked these numbers. This is off Yahoo Sports, but this is fact checked. Ronda Rousey made 2.2 million. Gina Carano made 1.1 million, we'll call it. Nate Diaz made fucking 500,000. Goddamn Felipe Lins got executed and got, 100,000. Francis Ngannou got paid 1.5. These are good payouts. But if you compare them, like Hamzat got paid more, but Sean Strickland didn't. Only one person got paid more. on Netflix on the UFC, and that was the reigning champion and Hamza, who's a fucking star. So it's just they need to get paid more than this. Netflix has all the money in the world compared to fucking the UFC, who's still a $7 billion company. But the UFC refuses to pay their fighters, and Netflix can pay them more. Netflix actually has the ability to keep up with the UFC and pay them more and outdo them. And if they just paid their fighters more, the UFC would feel threatened. More fighters would start moving to the fucking UFC or to Netflix from the UFC, and it would be a serious threat to the fucking organization. And then the UFC would now be forced to pay their fighters more, and it would cause a chain reaction with Netflix. And then the fighters get paid more, and the fighter quality of life improves. We get better athletes, we get more entertaining fights. It improves the sport as a whole. We complain about fighters not getting paid enough. But something like what Jake Paul is doing with Netflix right now has tons of potential, which we're about to get into. Like, these are all the cut fighters in the UFC. We got fucking Yoel Romero, Nate Diaz, Francis Ngannou, fucking so many other people who I can't think off the top of my head because of the pressure of being recorded. But like, the Netflix and Jake Paul need to do this. They need big matchups. They need the Jones versus Ngannou matchup. Could you fucking imagine that? Dana White would shit his fucking bald pants if fucking John Jones and Francis Ngannou faced off on Netflix. And that was that. And you know how fucking red his little tomato face would fucking get? I'm heated, but you know how red his little bald face would get? Like I said, I had this already on the slide. Man, whoever made this PowerPoint, real genius, this guy. If they pay the fighters more, it'll all handle itself, I think, truthfully. But they need to start signing talent, new and old. They got Francis Ngannou, they got Mike Perry, Nate Diaz, etc. Ronda Rousey, I fucking hate Ronda Rousey. I'm gonna make a separate video of my rant on Ronda Rousey, but I hate Ronda Rousey. God, dude, I was literally hate watching Ronda Rousey get head kick KO'd by Holly Holm today because I can't stand her. She thinks she's like trying to ride off in the sunset, but she's like the biggest sore loser, and yeah, I just don't like her. I know that's not the hot take, but they need to promote the fights. They need old 2012 UFC promotion style, bro. Like, no originality is in any of these promotions anymore. It's just fucking Dana's bald face saying the fights, and then we can barely hear him because he's on his golf stream or some shit. And then all of these fans like me make these edits, and hardcore fans, who we'll talk about in just a second here, but these hardcore fans all just make the content anyway because they're so in love with the fucking sport. So it'd be nice to fucking see someone promote the shit out of the sport and actually make some cool ass trailers where I can watch it and get into the fucking fight, into the story and everything. It's not that difficult. Like, literally, all these people need to do are care about the fucking company. But they just don't, and they're all fucking shills. Except, like, Jake Paul, I'm actually building a lot of respect for. Jake Paul, don't fight Nate Diaz. That's career suicide for both of you. Not an entertaining fight. I don't know why you'd want to see that. Appease to the hardcores. So the UFC has built their money off people like myself and Guru and Lucas Tracy, not putting myself in. I'm just saying examples of like hardcore fans who I think can think of off the top of my head. And they carry the sport. You know, the casuals will tune in every once in a while. That's how we get the 3 million pay-per-view buys somehow, or 2 million or whatever it is. 2.2 million was the highest ever, 2.4 for Khabib Conor. But if you appease to the hardcores and you take that fan base away from the UFC, it would cripple the UFC. It would. If you make the arguments where you're saying, dude, I don't know, man, Ngannou I think beats Aspinall, or who we'll talk about in a second. I'll get to the champions in a sec. But if you appease to the hardcores, you're crippling the UFC. And if you can do that in so many different ways, via promotion, via the original promotions on the shorts, new fighters, things like that. You know, there are a variety of different ways that they can pull audiences away from the UFC if they do it right. But Jake Paul, if you're listening to anyone, just capitalize on this. It's a golden opportunity. What's going to happen to the UFC? They'll either go out of the business or need to pay the fighters more, and they're going to pay the fighters more. They're not going to go out of business. The sport will grow, and UFC will grow if it does things correctly. I already touched on all this. But this is what I was talking about. Imagine if we had these fights or these champions. Imagine the discussions we'd be making. You know what I mean? Then we'd be talking about crossover fights, super fights. Dana White would feel, or, the UFC would feel pressured now. Then we could have these crazy Netflix UFC super fights. And the sport would go insane, dude. Like, Jake Paul is sitting on an amazing opportunity here. He needs to do these things immediately. They need to get Jones out of his fucking contract with the UFC, but the UFC's not going to let it go no matter what, because they're going to do Jones and Ngannou. But they need to figure out a way, man, because if they get it done, dude, Ngannou Jones would be insane. And then look at all these other weight classes. Vadim Nemkov is a PFL champion who he's a light heavyweight, but go look him up if you haven't. He's really good. I think they can get him over to Netflix. Mike Perry or Colby Covington or something like that for welterweight. Colby Covington just got cut from the sport. Mike Perry, he was looking good. He looked like he was showing mercy to Nate Diaz in his fight, so I could see him putting up a good fight at middleweight or welterweight. Who knows? Parnasse is the who they need to build off of. This Parnasse is new talent. Parnasse looked sharp as hell in his fight, and I predicted him to win. And I think that is the person they need to build off of and make champion. Then we'd be talking about, oh, dude, I don't know. Parnasse looks like he maybe could give some problems to Ilya Topuria, which I don't think would happen. I'm not that delusional. Topuria is literally Thrag from fucking Invincible, you know what I'm saying? Thirsty. And if Makayev became champion, she'd fight Marias for the championship belt. But imagine if Makayev became champion. We'd be talking about, I don't know, man, I think Van beats him. I don't know, man, I think DJ could get Makayev in his prime. We'd be talking about, oh, I think Makayev might actually be the flyweight go. These are all conversations that we could potentially have if we get these matchups. Fazil called out, looked amazing he's a welterweight. He came off a second round submission on Netflix, and he looked amazing in his fight. And if he fucking fought, I could see him fighting Jake Paul. He's the same size. That's a good fight. Jake Paul could fight him, and they could hype this guy up. If I were Jake Paul, I'd throw the fight against Fazil and hype Fazil up. You know what I mean? Imagine Fazil choking out Jake Paul. And legitimately, I would hope it would happen, but, Jake Paul is a businessman, would probably just fight to promote. Islam Marov, yeah, he's just a really good bantamweight. I couldn't find any other bantamweights to put on here, but he is solid, and he looks good. But let me check where I'm at on my recording real quick. But that's my UFC rant today. Pay structuring for the UFC shouldn't be that difficult. To put it in perspective, the UFC pays 25% of all of its profits to pays all 25% of all of its profits to fucking the fighters. The NFL and the NBA play 50 to 60% of their profits to the fighters. To the players, not the fighters. I'm sorry. I'm still not used to this recording thing, so I guess I'll edit it out once I figure out how to do that. But let me know what you guys think. What matchups do you want to see? What do you think about the Netflix card? Leave a like. Subscribe to me if you don't mind. It really helps the channel. I'm trying to grow with this. I'm trying to be like MMA Guru, the next MMA Guru, but I'm just the MMA Messiah or something. But like and subscribe. It was good talking. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Have a good day. Peace out.